parking here. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very excited about this week's show. I'm very excited about this week's show. We've got a few different stories we're going to cover, a bunch of Bevin-related stories. We're going to do a couple of quick hits. Nate Morris gets his payoff job. Governor Beshear expands the list of medical ailments that are covered by medical marijuana. Good news for some of our listeners and some of our co-hosts, actually. But the biggest and best news is of the week coming in the form of our streamlined staffing this week. So longtime friend of the show, one-time regular co-host, former Lexington Fayette council member Denise Gray, joining us to spill some tea about her one-time political opponent, Dr. Ralph Eldercare Abuse Alvarado. Should be a fun show. Darn glad you're here. But before we get into it, let's check in with our co-host. Let us know who you are, where are you, and then who is on your BITIN list. So I'll kick it off. For me, I'm going to go with Matt Bevin because I'm Aaron, coming to you from Lexington, the wilds of Childsburg. Matt Bevin on my BITIN list. That guy is truly the political gift that keeps on giving, kind of like the jelly of the month club, really. You know, every time you turn around, just when you forget about him, next thing you know, there's a new horrible story. So we got a couple that are related to him. So yeah, we're doing the BITIN list, and we're excited to talk about, you know, I won't say political enemies, just political folks who I would prefer they not be on the political stage. It really is what I'm saying. So that's me. All right, Denise, are you there?
I am here, and I'm excited to be back. Hi, Kentucky. And I sound really country all of a sudden. But hi, everybody. It's me, Denise Gray, and I am coming to you from the great north side of Lexington, from the Bryan Station area. And who's on my BITIN list? It would be, someone that we will be talking about today, who is now the Republican Party's 6th congressional district candidate, chosen one. Ralph Alvarado is on my BITIN list. As someone who ran a great race against him, I am looking forward to not only because he went down by, Bevin and Alvarado teamed up, and thank goodness our governor, Andy, and my sis, Lieutenant Governor, hopefully soon to be Governor of Kentucky, Jacqueline Coleman, took him down, and hopefully we have a candidate who will take down Ralph Alvarado once and for all.
Yeah, no, for sure. Excited to cover that race in just the absolute minutia, for sure. We're going to be laser focused on the 6th district over the next 5 months, for sure. All right, so Ralph Alvarado, Matt Bevin, the non-dynamic duo that could not keep up with Andy Beshear. And
they couldn't seal the deal, is what I said.
For sure. And it was a fun campaign. You like to see a victory, for sure. All right, so let's see. I guess thinking about Alvarado, and thinking about that upcoming race, 5 months is going to be here before you know it. So, we really want to make sure everyone understands how important it is to be involved. I think the big news that came out of the Kentucky 6th district race really was Democratic voter turnout, right? So if you look at the numbers, 3,000 more voters for the Democratic candidates showed up than for the Republican candidates, right? So if you look at the vote totals, the Kentucky 6th, the Democratic candidates got 3,000 more votes than the Republicans. So that's, I think, is a great sign. It's a sign of, I think, Adam Moore showed that kind of an enthusiasm gap. Because if you recall, there certainly was, at the top of the ticket, the Republicans knew their race was happening, right? Trump weighed in on like all the races, so we let him know kind of who to go vote for. The race was happening, trying to juice that primary turnout. So anyone that's listening to Trump knew there was an election that people should go out and support his guys. And his endorsements all kind of worked out for him. But looking at the numbers, that's where I find a little bit more hope for the 6th district. Because if you look at statewide, the Senate candidates, way more Republicans showed up for the Senate race, right? And because that wasn't just in the not 6th district, it was across the entire state, including the 6th district. So you'd imagine that Republican advantage would show up if it was there, and it wasn't. So that's where I'm getting some hope. And if that was like 1/4 of the voters showed up, just really sad. 25% ish of voters showed up.
It was kind of disappointing in that respect. The right to vote for me is such an important thing that so many people have fought for, and for registered voters not to show up, it's telling. And I always ask myself, is it that everyone is letting life get in the way? Is it that the candidates are not there's something about the candidates that's keeping them away? Or is it that they're not talking about the issues that truly ring home to the residents who typically go out to vote? But what makes me so happy is that there was even though I love nonpartisan world, I lived there, I was a nonpartisan elected official. And so typically, since I went from being a Democratic nominee to now being an actually elected nonpartisan, I like to see things without the partisanness to it, but we all know things are partisan. But what I want to know is the number of independents who did not show up to vote. And those right there are the people that I'm hopeful that the Democratic Party, that Zach will actually hone into for the election in November.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because independent voters, in a closed primary like we run in Kentucky, right? So if you are not a Democrat, you can't vote for the Democratic candidates. If you're not a Republican, you can't vote for the Republican candidates. So it's really important that people understand that, because if they show up and they don't I've only got 3 choices on my ballot, and none of them are the ones I've seen TV ads about, right? It's not going to be a really positive experience. I think there's a lot of things we need to do to fix voter, our engagement. And I think we should take a look at the closed primary system for sure. I don't know if I'm a big fan of the California version where the top 2 move on. But I do think there's opportunities. You have to actually change your party registration earlier than you do just have to register to be a voter, right? So you can't vote in those primaries unless you change your registration January. Whereas to actually be a voter in that primary, you can do that just I think a month before the election, right? So it's why are lots of people in, right? I think a lot of states you just walk up and you tell them I like the Republican ballot, or I'd like the Democratic ballot. And I think independent voters are, that's the block of voters that are actually growing the fastest in our state are those independent voters, because the kind of pops. I'm just going to say this, Denise, you understand the nonpartisan nature. Some races are nonpartisan, some are partisan. Obviously, as you just said, politics is partisan. And if you care about getting, things out of your political system, we're kind of getting into that red hat versus blue hat. Kind of that's just the way the world works right now in America's political system. And I don't know that works is the right word. That's the way it operates right now in our political system, which is such a disappointing and disillusioning process for most people, right? You and I are freaks because we really like politics. We pay attention to politics. We
bless our hearts, as I say.
Right? But we're weird. I think the vast majority, 75% of the people that didn't show up for the primary election, we're what? How could you not show up for the election? But it's right. It's the system isn't delivering for people, right? So
how do you continuously show up when people who do actually show up and vote, they're getting subpar leaders? And one thing about just since I've put myself out there, it's hard being an elected official. It really is. So there are so many people from what happened to me when I was elected, and the dragging of people who actually step out to do good for the community and being dragged. So so many people are staying outside staying home instead of stepping up to run. And we need more good people who love our Commonwealth of Kentucky, who love our city, who love our residents, to be willing to step out, because it's not easy. I can tell you it's not easy. It's got to be a love. For me, it's a love thing, because that's how much I do truly, truly, wholeheartedly love the people that I did represent. And possibly one day I will run again for something,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I think that, being motivated by your community, it really is kind of unique, and it's not, it's not as widespread maybe. And people like to complain. People like, there's always something to complain about, whether it's the ice or the potholes or just the fact that things are too expensive. And I think politicians have a tough road to actually, fix all the things. But it's hard to look at, Washington, D.C. or Frankfurt and see them really putting in their best faith effort to solve problems, right? You see a lot
And
of
as someone who has actually lobbied on behalf of my residents in Washington, D.C., let me tell you, that place is not what it once was. That's all I can say. It's a very interesting place to be. So Washington, D.C., are they doing the work of the people, or are they doing the work of the lobbyists in the big business, in the big pharma? So
yeah, hard to dispute that. All right, so one thing really quick I want to touch on before we get to news of the week. So that kind of abysmal voter turnout, that 25% turnout in the primary, we need to get that amped up. We need to get people engaged. We need to meet people where they're at, because honestly, as much as it's thrilling to see 3,000 more Democratic votes showing up in the 6th district race, it's going to be a whole different electorate in November. We need to get more people to the polls. We have a universe of about 20,000 voters that don't tend to show up in midterm elections that we are looking to engage with between now and November. So we're doing handwritten postcards. We're asking them what they think about our political system and what issues are really affecting them the most in the kind of short run. Sorry. So those handwritten postcards, we've gotten through, I think, over half of those 20,000 voters we want to get to. And the goal here is to get them all out the door in the next month or so. So we got a couple of opportunities coming, hot and heavy, where you can meet up with other activists, people who care about our Commonwealth, who want to see better political outcomes, who see that the world isn't red or blue, right? That people are different. People come with a lot of different issues they care about, but we want to find out what those issues are and interact with them. So those handwritten postcards, we're doing them. Let's see, we're doing actually this coming Saturday. We're going to be in Madison County down at the Richmond Library from 1 to 3 p.m. on Saturday, June 6th. There's a Mobilize link that we'll put in the chat. Parker or Zola, somebody, there we go. There's the link. Do the postcarding in Madison County. We got some awesome friends down there helping set those up. And then on Monday, the 8th, we're back at the West 6 Barrel Room. West 6 have been fantastic hosts for these events. We were usually the first Monday of the month. We're trying to be on that schedule, but they had a paying customer on the first Monday of the month. So they bumped us to the second Monday of the month. So we will be at the Barrel Room on Monday, the 8th. So yeah, there's the Mobilize link for that, right? Putting that in the chat. I'll tell you what, there it is, postcarding Lexington West 6. So that's in hit that link. The thing I love about Mobilize is once you sign up, it doesn't matter if there's a billionaire algorithm between you and us. You're going to get a text message to remind you that the event is coming up. And then they'll give you a little text cert. How did the event go? Did you have a good time? Was it well organized? You can give us some feedback. I love the Mobilize system. It's way better. Denise, you and I know that, being a field organizer for a campaign or trying to get your volunteers out, you got to do those confirmation calls the night before. It's kind of nice. It just sends you the text, right?
And as someone that signed up, and I've actually been out there to write postcards. See, I made it, Aaron.
Appreciate that.
I think other people saw me there too, and it.
I mean about you, Denise. A selfie was taken. I think
I'm pretty sure. I took a picture of my beverage, but this time no selfie. Selfie Queen didn't take a selfie that one time.
That's crazy. All right, so that's what we're doing. We got to really still have we've done a ton of these handwritten postcards, But as we know, there are a few tactics that can kind of break through. We think digital ads are not really that compelling, but I think if you get a piece of mail and it's from another human, maybe somebody who's just down the street, right? Right to your neighbor in Lexington or your neighbor in Madison County, saying, hey, we really love to hear what you think. We think politicians want to see us as red or blue. We think most of Kentucky is pretty purple. And tell us what matters to you, and then we'll hold the politicians accountable to those issues and what you're sharing. So I think it's a really good way to engage people who might not win the battle of the couch in November, right? And get them a little more involved. All right, so let's move on.
Can I say one more thing before we move on? I know we need to move on, but I just want to say thank you to Progress Kentucky for taking that stance, because I've been out of this for a while, but because my campaign colors have always been purple. And the reason for that, besides it being my favorite color, is because I know as an elected official, you represent all people, no matter if they are red or blue or polka dotted or whatever it is. So that's why it was important for me from the very start to have purple as the highlighting color of my campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, it will always be that too.
It works for your eyes, so that's good. Also, it is like, if you really, if I'm being honest, I'm team blue pretty much all the way. But, most people are not nearly so, I don't know, just partisan in their political outlooks. People have a lot of different views on a lot of different issues. And so to try to put people in one box, I just don't think most Americans are kind of that way. I think we have a lot of diversity out there. And so, again, we like to talk about getting Kentucky to be a little more purple, because honestly, we're just way too red right now. And you can get a little blue in there is gonna help water that red down. But yeah, I think it really is important that we meet people where they are, and we're having conversations about elections and what we can expect of our politicians. And then what we really want to do is, we'll start our process of actually reaching out to candidates, and we'll reach out to Zach Dembo, and we'll reach out to Ralph Alvarado, and I expect a warmer response from one of those two. But we'll make endorsements based on those responses and what they say they're going to do if they get to Washington, D.C. On behalf of our Commonwealth. All right, so we're going to do news of the week. I promise. We're going to do news of the week. I think we've got a graphic we're going to queue up. It's awesome. I love it because it moves. I love a moving graphic. If you don't know what I'm talking about right now, you can go check us out on YouTube. We are live on YouTube. You can watch the replays on YouTube. You can see news of the week moving. It's very exciting. So the first story, I think referred to our man, Matt Bevin. That, again, the political gift, because he's always doing always doing something stupid. And he is now, once again, he is facing jail or fines for his failure to show up in court. This is coming to us, of course, from the Kentucky Lantern, our favorite source for news from Frankfurt. Bevin says there was a large boulder that crashed through his main vacation home, which prevented him from appearing. He was trapped by a large boulder, and he's been sentenced to jail for contempt of court. So he doesn't really like to do what judges tell him to do, because this is the second time, and he has not shown up for Jefferson Family Court in person, even though he was told he needed to be there. So they're saying that it's unlikely he will serve the 14-day sentence imposed by Johnson. Unfortunately, the judge offered him the option of a $250 fine, and Bevin's lawyer said he would make sure it was promptly paid. We'll see. Going on in the story, Johnson appeared unimpressed with Bevin's account of the boulder, reminding him he'd been ordered to appear in person, and she expected him to do so. And this comes after Bevin in March avoided potential arrest for contempt of court by asking the state Supreme Court to remove Johnson from his divorce case. The court refused, sent the case back to Johnson for further action. Johnson previously had found him in contempt of court for failing to provide complete financial information she requested, as she considers his adopted son, Jonah, and his request for support. She reminded Bevin that the previous 60-day sentence is still a possibility if he does not meet a June 5th deadline that the judge set Friday to fully disclose financial records Jonah's lawyers are seeking. Johnson said, "That's the end of it. You will serve the time." So this is really interesting. He's basically he's saying he can't provide the financial information that Jonah, his adopted son, who's been abandoned, who's been treated horribly, who was abandoned in, was it Jamaica, where the home for wayward youth that he sent them, that he was sent to by the Bevins. It just really a horrible story of neglect and abuse and just not care. But one thing I found just absolutely outrageous. One of the reasons Bevin can't provide tax returns for Jonah and his attorney is because the Bevins haven't filed federal income taxes since 2021.
What?
They've received extensions and they will file the documents, but I don't think that's how that works. I don't think you can have an extension for years and years and years. And the fact they have not filed their federal taxes, this is like that whole Epstein class stuff, Denise. It's like, yeah, really rich people just get away with everything. And this is one of the reasons that, one of the first moves of Trump when he came in was to, get rid of all the new IRS agents, right? IRS was staffing up under the Biden administration because they know the best way to get tax dollars is to make sure there are plenty of IRS agents able to do the challenging audits of people like Matt Bevin, who is outrageously rich, and his whole crew of folks who own islands, lots of vacation homes, and have a lot of attorneys helping them hide their money. That is like, he has not filed taxes since 2021. That is just outrageous to me. That guy is horrible, and anyone associated with him, I think, is horrible, if we're being honest. And if I can lead us to the next one. So, all right. So this is Matt Bevin. Any thoughts about him getting away with A, not providing tax documentation, or B, the boulder that kept him from appearing, even though the judge told him he had to appear, or the fact that he's got until Friday to get all his tax money or tax information to Jonah's attorneys, or he might actually go to jail. It just seems like this guy is not killing it in terms of defending himself on this case. What do you think, Denise?
Well, I have so much to say because I've actually met Jonah way back at I was working on a campaign, and I was in one of two people at Hillbilly Days in Pikeville, Kentucky. And Jonah, bless his heart, he was dressed in a suit, buttoned all the way, the shirt was buttoned all the way up his neck, and I felt so bad for him because I was wearing shorts as usual, because it was hot.
And I gotta imagine Hillbilly Days didn't require a suit.
It did not. So, which is why I asked him if he was okay. That's what we did. We check on you. And I was like, are you okay? Are you safe? And the look on I wondered if he was safe because it was obvious he wasn't safe because he was obviously hot. And so he's a delightful young man. He was a little boy then, but he was perfectly delightful. But I just felt so bad for him. And I've been wondering how he's been. And I have been more than upset about the fact of what he's been dealing with, to be left in another country, his whole situation, being adopted by this family and being treated less than, from all accounts that have been put in the newspaper. Yeah. And just at that same time, I did speak to Bevin, Joy to the World, who once he realized who I was, he immediately stopped talking. So, which makes me laugh still to this day. But for me, it's still very alarming that he thinks that he's above the law, that he thinks that he doesn't have to treat people with the same dignity and respect that we're all due. I just feel for that young man that he adopted. And pay your taxes like we all do. Who's above the law? I guess Bevin.
Yeah, you still have to file taxes. You still got to file your taxes, even if you're living off of your savings or whatever garbage that is. Like, that's insane.
I want to live off my huge bank of money one day.
She's just living off the interest. That's the way rich people do it, I guess. I wouldn't
bless him that he can live that way.
All right. So speaking of Matt Bevin, so last time Matt Bevin was on the ballot, he was alongside your friend of mine, Dr. Ralph Alvarado. One of the reasons, if I'm being completely candid, Denise, I really wanted to have you on the show is because, you got a bit of a long history of doing politics in Kentucky. I always appreciate your views. Always have a fun time talking politics about you. But ding, 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 ding. The last time you ran for a partisan race, you ran against Dr. Ralph Alvarado for that Senate district that includes like Montgomery and Clark County, or was it? It was the Senate, right?
Yes, it was Senate 28th district. At the time, I was in that district. Guess what happened after that race? They took my neighborhood, not my area, my neighborhood outside of the 28th Senate district, because that was how bad, how I almost won that race.
Nice.
I love when people underestimate the power of an intelligent Black woman. Guess what?
So that's how we first met. I was
Yes.
Amy's field organizer for Montgomery and for Clark County, and that was 2018. The same ballot that you were on.
And I crashed almost every event of Amy's. They would look up and Denise Gray's there because guess what? I'm going to show up.
It's a coordinated campaign because
I made it coordinated.
We're doing the work, and if she was a bit of a draw in 2018. Let's be honest, right? She didn't get past the primaries this time, but she definitely was a juggernaut in 2018 for that House race for sure.
And still a powerful woman despite the turnout in this race. So kudos for her for putting herself out there again.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wasn't on the show immediately after the primary, so I just want to take a minute and recognize like all the candidates that came on Kernels of Truth, all the candidates that like ran for the right reasons and had smart, strong policies and were really working to be a force against Trump in Washington, D.C. And I think all of them were, at least all the ones that came on our show. So at the Senate level, Amy came on. She did not like take a minute to think about it. She's like, yes, when you want me, I will show up. She was great. It was right after I think the streets of Hormuz had closed. So, she had a lot to say about that issue. I thought it was a very strong appearance. We also had Logan Forsythe on. I thought he was a great candidate. I hope he continues to be involved in politics. I think he would be a very strong candidate for a lot of different races, especially if he embraces fundraising. I think it's unfortunate that he he
didn't embrace that. That's such a big part. Call time is everything.
Yeah, and it sucks because I get it. Like, no one signs up to run for office because, like, hey, I want to ask a bunch of rich people for money. Like, but
nobody wants that.
Yeah. Nobody. So I think there's structural reforms that we could work together, Logan. But you got to get elected first, and so it's got to play by the rules that are like established, even if they're kind of lame rules. And then we had Dale Romans on. Of course, we had Charles Booker on. We had, of course, Colonel Pam on. Love Colonel Pam. And then at the House level, want to recognize, of course, longtime friend of the show, Sherilyn Stevenson,
yes.
And her army of volunteers who worked so hard and knocked on so many doors, over 30,000 doors they hit. Want to, thank Erin Petrie for coming on the show and the energy she brought and her attention on data centers. I think especially at the end there, really important stuff to highlight. And then, of course, the David Kloiber, really appreciated his work and his perspective that he shared and his approach to having a solutions first kind of campaign and candidacy. So thank all of them. Congratulations to Zach. Congratulations to Charles. We will look, we'll look eagerly to hear what their plans are between now and November for sure. As I mentioned, Denise, we'll do our candidate surveys that we'll send out to the different races, and we'll use that information to make endorsements. But we probably won't make those endorsements till closer to the end for sure. But if you talk up politics with me, it's probably probably not that hard to predict who we're going to endorse. Nonpartisan, just the issues that are driving it. Anyway, so that's just jumping back though. So, that's this election. Now we've got Ralph Alvarado who beat, Reverend Ryan Dotson, which leaves an open House race, which is interesting in that seat. But he also beat Plachinsky, who was some sort of a former pharmaceutical executive. There was apparently one other person that was in the race. I didn't even know who he was. But when Trump endorsed Alvarado, he's like, oh, I'm going to get out because Trump's my guy. And I'm like, oh, well.
He sounds like the salt of the earth. Down to 3 persons.
It really was. It was like a bootlicker competition. Like who could lift Trump's boots the hardest. And Ralph, ran a lot of TV ads that he was the Maha doctor.
Yeah.
He won
He
that.
ran those ads and saying, about those, those darn immigrants.
Yeah. So you've run against the guy, right?
Yeah.
It's been a minute. Things have, been a little bit different. That was the first Trump midterm. Now we're into the authoritarian Trump midterm, where this is our last gasp of democracy potentially. Seems a little more urgent than it was even then, which was not great. So what do you remember running against Ralph Alvarado? We did a little bit a couple weeks ago. We talked about the whole insider dealing that he did when he was a state legislator, when he was also the medical director of a few different retirement homes, and he made sure they did not change the laws to require more medical care for retirement homes, and of course alleged elder care abuse that happened because of those laws, of the absence of having stronger laws. But besides that piece, like, what do you think is, when you look back at your race, what do you think was most enlightening about this guy and about his character?
So his character and about him. By the way, Aaron, I just want to say thank you for thinking of me. I knew you only wanted me here because I took on that person. But I was hoping it was because my sparkling personality.
I always want to talk politics with you. I love talking politics with you. But yes, this did tee it up to oh man, we got to talk to Denise.
You're like, Denise. And then I'm back in Kentucky. We're like, Denise, come on.
The stars aligned.
Yes. So regarding Ralph Alvarado, so in 2018, I was definitely the underdog. I was, I had everybody telling me no. Going from my own Kentucky Democratic Party to the leadership in state Senate for the Democratic Party, who sought out white male trial attorneys to primary me because they did not think that anyone would vote for a Black woman in the 28th Senate district or in the state of Kentucky. That's what I was point blank told. So I was getting it not only from the other side, who I had death threats, I had people attempting to kill me, literally. It's literal. People tried to kill me because I stepped up to represent the 28th Senate district. It was horrible. But so it was coming at all ends. But what my whole takeaway with the current GOP, Grand Old Party of Kentucky's candidate for this race, there were very many things that took away from that. Besides them thinking I had zero chance in getting any kind of support. It wasn't until they did polling, because one thing about me, I might not have the money, I might not have the name recognition, but guess what? By the end of the race, everybody's going to know me because I'm going to work 20 times harder than anyone else. I will show up even when I'm not invited. Ask Amy McGrath. I will show up at residents' homes to personally talk with them. I will start having coffee and conversations so people will get those silly stereotypes of whatever they think, or the preconceived ideas of what they thought that I was. So with that, they did the polling, I think, in October, and that's when everything changed. That's when my then opponent and his party went racial, because what do you do in Kentucky when a Black woman runs in a predominantly white area? You got to go racial, you got to go low. So one thing what really struck home to me as someone that was actually born and raised here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, compared to an individual that moved here, did not truly understand what Kentucky's about, was how low they went with the racial. The big claim amongst that party and amongst that candidate was that I said something that, if you know me as a human being, you know that I don't even think like this. That if you own a gun and you're a member of the NRA, you're automatically a white supremacist who hates Black people. I don't ever think like that. So that for me was the most alarming. Forget the death threats, forget any other threats or attempts at taking my life that I did receive. That for me was the most hurtful. And that's all that people saw when they looked at me. was a stereotype. But another thing regarding that party and the people and who support that candidate, Ralph Alvarado, is that there were times, if you know me and you see me out in your community, because for several months, and I was in all three counties every single day. I was in Montgomery County and Clark County so often that everyone thought that I lived there in their area. They were like, what street do you live on? So there was a debate being held by a chamber of commerce where I was purposely told the wrong date, the wrong time, and the wrong location.
That's insane.
Yeah. And so that helped that party, the GOP of Kentucky. They started out a campaign called Where's Denise? Like, where's Waldo?
Mm.
Yeah. It was all over everywhere. They were putting it out there. There were mailers out there. Denise Gray doesn't show up.
The one event you missed because they told you the wrong date, and then they use that to make their case. Disgusting.
And so they manufacture truths, their own truths. So my take home, want everyone to understand is, when people send out these negative mailers, which I'm pretty sure we have some here that I shared, and they're the actual incumbent, you got to ask why. Liberals like Denise. And if you know me, you know how liberal is Denise. I'm not that liberal. I'm a middle of the road kind of human being because I believe there's some truths in a lot of things. And a lot of my beliefs aren't necessarily liberal. So there was a lot of storytelling is what we call lying. It's called lying, but I call it storytelling because you're not supposed to call people liars. And another, just one brief thing, and then we'll move on, is that when I was on the campaign trail for the 28th Senate District seat, I knew for a fact that Ralph was not going to finish that term. He point blank, I brought that up, of course, in the debate, because that's what I do, and point blank lied to the people. Point blank lied. And said that he would be there, would finish it out. But guess what happened when he did get that role? He left the residence of the 28th Senate District and moved to Tennessee. When he did move to Tennessee, he took over, I believe, as commissioner of, was it health? Yeah. I believe it was health, some form of the health care industry there. And when he was there, I did receive a lot of calls asking about who is this guy? Because there was a big controversy regarding the fact that this physician did not want those who have been diagnosed with HIV or who have full-blown AIDS to receive the medication to take care of their illness. And that for me, yes. So I received numerous calls asking about who was he as a person? What was he like to interact with? And that tells you a lot about who he is, what his character is. One, and as what you all spoke about a couple of weeks ago, my faith is major to me. It's who I am. And to the least of these, our elderly people, those people that are in our nursing homes, they deserve the best. We all deserve the best as far as I'm concerned, especially those who have lived a long life and are depending on the care of others. And to be in that position that he held and to, in my opinion, purposely ensure that these nursing homes could treat our seniors the way that they've been treated in those nursing homes. Yeah, it's a travesty, and it tells you everything you ever need to know about that human being.
Yeah. He wants to squeeze an extra dime out of the profits of those nursing homes, so they don't have to have the proper medical care. So people do get those wounds that have maggots and have amputations because of I read that story and I was just outraged, right?
And I actually spoke to family members of individuals, and it still to this day breaks my heart in that this is the person that people are voting for.
Yeah.
Does their political affiliation mean that much to them rather than having someone of good character, I think we need to all do a internal check on who we really are as human beings, as Kentuckians.
Yeah, so he wasn't so committed to being the state senator, right? So the second, Alvarado or the second Bevin gave him the opportunity to jump on the ticket, he did
Yep.
that, right? He wasn't the first choice, but he got on there, and that was just the next year, right? Is that? I'm not remembering that correctly. It was his second.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. It was the next year, 2019, and then he loses with Matt Bevin, yay, and then he immediately jumps ship and moves to Tennessee, and now he's back because there's a political opportunity.
Of course, there's an opportunity. It's not about the people, and that's for me. Stepping up to run as someone that has put my name out, as someone who's had their name in the newspaper, as someone who has had the media follow me around. Let me tell you, every single thing that I've done is because I wanted to represent the people of my community. And I wanted to do it in a way that was full of excellence and full of care and full of intelligence.
Well, clearly you were overlooked, you were underestimated, and you made it a much closer race than I think they thought it would be. And then, found yourself in city council, which is awesome. I will say this, really, getting to know you on that race, really appreciate the energy you brought, the intentionality you brought, and, the opportunism that you showed, oh, Amy's doing a big rally. I'm going to be there because there's a lot of my district that is in that. That overlap was smart. I will say this, it's summer. I'm wearing my Ale8 Paw shirt, tropical shirt, because it is summer. I'm drinking my Ale8, and you can't talk about that district and not talk about Ale8, because it's a gift that district gives to the rest of our Commonwealth. I'm just gonna say, although I don't like the blackberry as much as the pawpaw. I'm just saying.
It's all delicious to me. Commercial.
All right. I don't think they're going to sponsor our show, but I do think we have let's jump on to another story. I think a couple things we wanted to share with folks before we move on. You've done your homework. This is an important one. Again, it is I think a Bevin related story. What's up?
Well, joy to the world. So there is a story that, once again, it's entitled, "With Legislature on Board at Last, Kentuckians Will Vote on Pardon Limits in November Election," by the Kentucky Lantern. So if you recall, in November 2026, Kentucky voters will decide whether to amend the Kentucky Constitution to limit the governor, the executive branch's ability to issue pardons and sentence commutations. Or what's that word? To commute. Say that word for me, Aaron.
Yeah, commutations. You had it. You totally said it right.
I mean, I haven't been to school once or twice.
Yeah. It's not one of the words you say every day. Let's be honest.
During the final stretch of the final election. So you all, I need all ears open to this, and I need you to receive this. So this proposal would prohibit governors from granting pardons of any kind beginning 60 days before the election through the inauguration of their successor. So this amendment is a direct response to the controversial pardons by who? Governor Bevin, as he left office in December 2019. Among those pardons that he issued that generated some outrage, not just some outrage, but a lot of outrage, were individuals convicted of murders, individuals convicted of child abuse, a man convicted of raping a 9-year-old child, a convicted killer whose family had gave money to Bevin to his political campaign. So you want to know who sponsored this bill? You might think it's coming from a Democrat, but it's not. It's coming from Chris McDaniel, a Republican senator from Northern Kentucky. And what he and his supporters are saying regarding this is that that governors should not lose their pardon power entirely, but instead he argues that the governors should not be allowed to issue controversial pardons. after voters have effectively already rendered judgment at the ballot box. So he's saying if, say, the governor has been ousted from office, didn't win his election, that person should not be able to make pardons or commute anyone's sentence. He says this amendment creates an accountability because governors and their political parties would have to answer to voters for pardon decisions before rather than after an election. So what many people are saying and who oppose this is that Kentucky has gubernatorial pardons for nearly 250 years. Pardons can correct injustices when courts fail, and courts do fail. The Constitution should not necessarily be changed because of one governor's actions, and future governors may need flexibility to address wrongful convictions in exceptional circumstances. So here's my take on this. Is that historically the pardon power has been one of the strongest executive branch powers in our Constitution. When we've seen this attack on the executive branch in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We've seen how the current General Assembly has effectively taken away many of our current Governor Andy Beshear's powers, which will last even after he's not our governor. It will. So whatever we do will have a lasting effect. So the argument against restrictions is that once you limit this power, you can never bring it back, or it's so much work to bring back this power. So I think that we need to reconsider and perhaps modify whatever this senator is attempting to do. So what do you think, Aaron?
I am. It's hard to see what Bevin did and not be outraged, right?
Right.
But you don't want to oversolve the last problem. So I'm a bit of two minds of it. I guess I'll have to make my mind up by November.
Yes.
But I think it's one more, as you say, one more way that the legislature is taking power out of the governor's hands. So I'm for guardrails as we watch this current executive in Washington, D.C. run rampant, like Godzilla-like, over constitutional norms, institutional norms, and just to do his own corrupt thing. I'm not against putting some rules in place that try to keep them on the playing field. But I don't know. I'm going to think about this. I do not have a hot take right now. I'm going to let it simmer for a few months and think what I think about it.
I think that more so this is a knee-jerk reaction to we're overcompensating for a bad governor, a person, in my opinion, that never should have been elected in the first place, who didn't have the mental not going to talk about his mental capacity or his thinking skills. Actually, I am. In his judgment, his lack of good judgment. So we can't take this out on future governors. As we have seen this current General Assembly do this knee-jerk reaction, which perhaps we will have, perhaps in the future, not now, not the next term, maybe 20 years from now, we may have another Republican governor. And we don't want to hold anyone accountable for anything that Bevin has done.
Yeah, I suppose, right. I think this is a step. It clearly doesn't take away all the power, right? But it kind of constrains it to that spot. I don't know. Anyway, we got a couple other stories we're gonna do.
Yeah, go for it.
I do want to I don't want to come off as a totally crazy sensitive person, and I know you've shared the story with me in the past. We kind of glossed over. If we're stepping back a little bit, we kind of glossed over the oh yeah, I was threatened, and when I was running for so do you want to get into that story at all? Because that was just a little terrifying to hear. If you don't, that's fine. But I also didn't want to gloss over it. That's crazy, to kind of put out there. But if you're nope, I'm good, I dealt with it already. Whatever you want to do with it, but it's
I'm
it's
one of the
scary.
most transparent people you're ever going to meet. I will tell you anything. For me, there were, running a campaign that is mostly rural. Once you get outside of Fayette County, it's
Yeah.
rural. Um, and you're dealing with people who don't necessarily deal with a lot of people that look like me, which for them perhaps could cause fear until they got to know me.
Yeah.
I did have individuals with a noose ready for me, it was just it was a scary time. There were times when I would ask some of my volunteers to go with me, and I didn't want to talk about why I needed people with me, and most of the time I didn't have anyone with me, because when you're running a campaign, a grassroots campaign, you don't have the money, you don't have anything. All you have is yourself to move things. So people came to the doors with guns pointing at me, telling me this N word to move. I had people who had a noose. Who has nooses? How do you even make one? Evidently, people know.
I'm sure they do.
I had people, driving back to Lexington, people running me off the road.
Wow.
It was a wild time. But my whole thing is, I hope no one else has to deal with that. I'm hoping that once many of these people met me, they understood how their wrongs. But who knows? It was just it was a tough thing, which is why I would crash so many of Amy's events off the record. Well, it's not off the record, it's on the record. But that's really and truly why, besides making sure I got more bang for my buck, I knew there were going to be more people that were going to be there to support her. And I knew Amy had my back. Amy has my back now.
She knows how to use a gun.
Yes,
yeah. So I just, and the fact that you were running in a district, I'm sorry, I'm a little all over the place, but I thought about that. Wait, she said that. We didn't even touch on it. That you were running in a district that included, and say what you will, Mount Sterling was a sundown town.
It was.
Right? It was enough Klan activity, enough white supremacy. They're yeah, don't let the sun set on you, Black person, because you are not safe in this community. And that is well known. It's documented. It's established. It's not it's not a part of history they teach in the 7th grade here, right? But the fact that we have a lot of white supremacy in rural communities for sure, and you were running in a district that had and not so
and with zero support from my own party. My party did not even step up to support me.
Yeah, I will say this: the Montgomery County Dems have come a long way since then.
Oh, they have. The Democratic Party there was great for me.
And I think the Fayette County Dems have come a long way since then. Even I think there's a lot of great organizing that's happened. But I will say this also: it's not a lot of these county parties, they don't have a lot of progressives helping lead the way in those areas, in those rural communities, right? It's an old guard that's this is the way we've done it. This is the way we'll always do it,
And hence why after that campaign, I did. I've got on Kentucky Democratic Party's State Central, because I never wanted another candidate to deal with what I did, the lack of support from your own party. However, once being on State Central and representing the 6th congressional district, I saw that it was more cliquish, in that everyone that represents the 6th congressional district cannot come from Fayette County. If we want to have people run for those offices in Gabbard, in these other counties such as Mount Sterling, Winchester, heck, we had so many unopposed races for state house. Because guess what? The focus has not been on getting out to the rural parts. It cannot be solely on Fayette County and on Jefferson County if we want to make major changes in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It cannot.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that in the future that the party will get that memo, because we did not have people running against these people.
I will say this, and I've said it before on the show.
Not about Coleman. I love Coleman though.
They did do, to their credit, I think they did a rural kind of listening tour. They did stops around the Commonwealth. They maybe did this when you were out of town, but it was put some time into it. We know the KDP is not a incredibly well-resourced entity.
No, it's not.
They don't have a ton of money or staff, but I thought that it was a good faith effort and showed an awareness, at least, that, like, this isn't tenable what we currently have right now. I also say it's hard to recruit for a suicide race, or a suicide mission. Like, and it's like the math is really hard for a lot of those districts, but it's, impossible to win if there's no candidate. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's no chance for us if no one steps up to run.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, hey, let's just do a couple quick hits, and then we will let people get on with their week. So a couple of news stories that we didn't want to spend a ton of time with, but we did want to draw attention to. First one I'll do. I don't know if you're interested in doing the medical cannabis one, Denise, but the first one is that our man Nate Morris. If you recall, Nate Morris, last time you heard his name probably was when he was blasting ads all across your television, all across your laptop. When he and Andy Barr were fighting to be the most pro-Trump, the most anti-DEI, the most anti-Mitch McConnell, whatever. But Nate Morris, businessman, the guy who announced his campaign on Don Jr.'s podcast, who had Charlie Kirk singing his praises, and had J.D. Vance's best buddy. And so, this guy was like definitely challenging Garland Hale Bootlicker Barr for like the most Trumpy of the candidates. And he had money. He had a bunch of Elon Musk money for a PAC that Musk dumped money into. But he dropped out of the race ahead of the primary last month after Trump endorsed Bootlicker Barr, and Trump gave him the great news that he was going to ask him to step aside from the race and take a role in the administration as an ambassador. Country was not named. He's like, we just want him to be an ambassador. We'll figure out the country later. Because I'm sure Nate Morris has such expertise against such a wide range of international areas. He would be the very appropriate ambassador for a number of nations, right? But turns out he got the pick. I'm sure he wanted. He's going to be the ambassador to Colombia. So maybe drug cartels, he can hang out with some of them down there. Colombia, very interesting. Just today, I think their election was finalized in a runoff, and the very right-wing Trump-endorsed candidate won. So I think there'll be lots of opportunities for Nate Morris and the new president of Colombia to find some common ground. But I did want to just point out that the unnamed ambassadorship has now become named, and he has been submitted to the Senate as the next ambassador to Colombia. Clearly, super appropriate pick for that guy. Denise, any thoughts on Nate Morris?
Well, all I can say is he's got a job.
Got a job, yeah. And billionaire, former businessman, he didn't really need a job, but he's now he's going to do something that he'll have to report on his taxes, I guess. Or maybe not.
It's nice to know that. I mean, it's very unfortunate to know that some people's souls are for sale.
Yeah, a lot of politicos, I firmly believe that, can be bought off with the right job offer. All right, did you want to touch on the Governor Beshear, our good Andy? We got a bad Andy in the political landscape right now, and we got a good Andy. We don't like to give Andy Barr any positive Andy associations, so again, we try to just refer to him as Bootlicker Barr on this show. If you want to go the long route, you can give his full given name, Garland Hale Barr the Fourth, his actual name, not his chosen name of Andy Barr. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, good Andy Beshear. He did something cool this week. Did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I'll touch on it very briefly since we're going to go on in. So on June 2nd, which is what's today? Today's the 3rd, isn't it?
Yeah,
yesterday, y'all. Governor Andy Beshear signed an executive order directing the Kentucky Office of Medical Cannabis to issue an emergency regulations that expanded the number of, illnesses that qualify to be covered with the medical cannabis. So what they included were terminal illness, sickle cell anemia, ALS, Parkinson's disease, HIV. I can go down the list. Fibromyalgia. He, thank goodness, opened up that list because so many people truly are suffering, and cannabis does help with people who are going through these things MS was already covered. So was cancer, epilepsy, and a few others. So I'm thankful that they have expanded this list. So thank you, Governor Andy Beshear.
Yeah, that's awesome. Glaucoma added to the list.
Yes.
Definitely.
But that's been an ongoing joke. If you watch the movies, my glaucoma. If you watch Rush Hour.
And I was a little offended when it didn't make the cut the first time. I was like, I was sure I had some glaucoma coming on. Anyway, way to go, Andy Beshear. Important step. I'm sure the legislature will come back and try to take his ability to do that because that's what they do. But while you got the power, use it. And I'm glad that he made this medical marijuana thing happen for sure. He was going to do it. The legislature's like, I guess he's going to do it. We better do it. And then, it's been, I think, really popular, obviously. And now it's even going to be more popular because more folks are able to get that medicine. But yeah, I think that's mostly our show. I got one quick call to action, and then we can get out of your hair. I don't know if one of our producers, there we go, the call to action. This is an important one. I used it last week, the issue last week. I included Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, on my BITIN list due to efforts to weaken coal ash rules, despite the toll unregulated coal slurry spills have taken across Appalachia, specifically Martin County in 2000. Our friends in Appalachian Voices have launched an action alert, so you can add your comment to the EPA directly, urge them to protect clean water from the coal industry. There's this link in the comments or in the chat, in the show notes. Please click through, add your voice. Don't let the coal companies further damage our region. So that quick call to action. So I think with that, I think we just got to close out the show. I want to say thank you again to Denise Gray for hanging out with me this hour. Always fun to chat politics with you.
Yes, thank you for having me back. I have really missed you. I've been missing talking about politics, going from nonprofit world to come back to this. I've missed Kentucky. I'm so glad to be home. I've missed the smiles. I missed the, how you doing, girl? So I'm so happy to be home. So thank you for having me here.
Well, I think Kentucky's better off with you here. I know Progress Kentucky is always better off with your engagement and your insights. So again, thank you so much, Denise. And all right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna close out the show. We gotta do the legal documents that are required to be shared with you. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization. We are registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State. We are organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and Common Ground Kentucky Action. We are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Thank you, Bruce Maples. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Come back next week. We're going to be joined by Attica Scott, former state representative Attica Scott. Does a lot of great work. Yes, we love Attica. One of our first guests, actually, when we were in the Moscow Mitch Monday show and the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. Production of episode 261 was by Parker, supported by Zoe. Thank you both. Nate Orshan wrote and performed our theme song. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. If you find us on YouTube, please smash that subscribe button. And thank you so much for joining Kernels of Truth.